The movie begins in Tokyo in 1970. We see a man sitting inside a train and reading the newspaper. He looks a little suspicious. Just a few seats over is a girl named Saya. Apart from these two, there is no one else inside the train. Saya keeps looking over at the man, who is alerted by her presence. As the train moves forward with a whistling sound, the man gets up to distance himself from the observant girl. Watching the man move away, Saya also follows. All of a sudden, she wields a katana. Watching this, the man shouts in fear and pulls an iron bar from overhead. His inhuman strength is quite shocking. Turns out, this man is a vampire. Before he can attack Saya, she effortlessly slices his body into two, mirroring the man's inhuman strength. As it turns out, Saya is also a 400 years old half-human half-vampire supernatural hunter. Some time later, the train comes to a stop at Asakusa station. Saya gets off the train and comes face to face with a few men in suits. The man in charge, named Michael, tells the others to make haste as they don't have much time. They are the members of an organization called the Council. It is a secret society that has been hunting vampires for centuries. Saya ignores the men and passes right by them. When Michael suddenly calls out to her, she gets angry at the man, telling him that she didn't join this organization to go after such weak vampires. In the background, the men check the train to make sure that Saya has taken care of the vampire. One of them comes back and says that since the body is intact, he must not be a vampire. Thus, their boss should not trust Saya blindly. Hearing this, the woman gets angry, and they get into a little scuffle. Michael, however, remains steadfast. He believes in Saya and tells his underling that the vampire must not have transformed fully, due to lack of time. He asks the woman to let the man go, and Saya storms off angrily. Michael calls out after her, telling her to get some rest, and that they will be meeting at the hotel tomorrow. The group then takes care of the mess inside the train, to make sure there is no evidence left. Later, we see Saya back in her hotel room. She hurriedly looks through the cabinets and takes out a bottle. Putting it to her mouth, she hungrily drinks the crimson liquid, quenching her thirst. Afterwards, she goes out for a stroll through the town. While walking around, she has the illusion of hearing a strangely familiar voice. But when she looks back, there is no one in sight. Shortly after, she remembers a flashback of an older time, when one of her acquaintances named Kato was alive. Kato was an old man who cared for and looked after Saya. He also knew her father, and would tell her about him whenever Saya asked. On this particular day, she is sitting down with the old man who is combing her hair. He tells her how her dad was a brave warrior. He used to slay demons. He tells her how demons can assume human and live among humans, but it is the duty of a virtuous warrior to slay them and protect the innocent people. Saya looks a little confused. She asks how her father could differentiate the people from the demons. The old man takes a deep breath and says that he could tell just by looking at their eyes. No matter how human these demons look, they can never manifest a human soul. So when you look them straight in their eyes, their soulless bodies become quite evident. He shares how her father was slain by the vilest of demons, the one named Onigin. He tells Saya that it is her duty to get revenge for her father and take out Onigin, the oldest of the vampires who slaughtered her father. Back in the present, we see Saya in her hotel room the next day. Michael has come to visit her. He tells her how there have been 3 slaughters in the American air base within a week. They discern that since these underling demons are feeding without being discreet, they must be under the protection of their leader. Thus, Onigin must be nearby. Michael then gives her a new bottle of blood, which she stores. He tells her how her wish to slay Onigin is going to be fulfilled soon since they have some leads. Saya asks the plan, and Michael says that they would need to go there and find out. Hearing this, the girl gets a little angry. She says that she isn't here to investigate, but to slaughter. Michael sighs and tells her to do as she pleases. She can just slay the bottom feeders and lure out Onigin, but he warns her not to blow her cover. Saya gets curious hearing this, and Michael leaves after pointing to a new outfit in a box. It turns out, for her next mission, she needs to go undercover as a student at Kanto High School on an American air base near Fusa. Back at the air base, the next day, we see a girl named Alice McKee. She is the daughter of the base's general. Her father is driving her to school. The girl looks annoyed. She is uncomfortable with her father driving her to school every day. She thinks that it is unnecessary, and it gets her unwanted attention from everyone on campus. When she snaps at her father, he tells her that it is the only time that he can spend with her, so he would not stop dropping her off to school. He then asks her to come clean about her little stunt the other night, when she sneaked out with a car in the middle of the night. Alice gets irritated at how her father is keeping tabs on her. The driver, named Frank, suddenly stops the car, almost hitting 2 girls who are carelessly walking on the road. Taking this chance, Alice quickly descends the car and runs off, despite her father calling after her. On the other hand, Saya also arrives at the base. She is led to class by her teacher, who introduces her to everyone. When she is introduced, her appearance quickly attracts the negative attention of a female classmate named Sharon. Back outside, we see Michael talking to someone on the phone. He tells them that their plan has been successful so far, referring to Saya's enrollment at the base. Back inside, we see a cleaner wheeling her supplies when she notices the lights flickering. Ignoring this eerie occurrence, she heads off to clean the washroom. As she begins her work, she hears some strange movements outside the door. She goes out to check but sees nothing. Once she re-enters the bathroom, this poor old woman is attacked and brutally slaughtered. Blood spills out and stains the washroom door, as the poor woman's screams of pain echo throughout the hall with no one to help her. Back in the classroom, the students are discussing Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The teacher asks Saya to partake in discussion, but she remains quiet. As the girls start to taunt Saya with racist remarks, Alice comes to her rescue. She comments on the discussion, but she too faces mockery at the hands of Sharon. This girl is a real jerk. After class, they have a kendo session. Alice seems to perform very poorly, thus she is asked by her kendo instructor Powell to stay back for extra practice. As it turns out, Powell has asked the two meanest girls to help out Alice. She tries to refuse and asks for solo practice, but Powell does not agree. With a heavy heart, she steps back into the practice room, but what awaits her afterwards really shocks the poor girl. The other two put on loud music and take out real swords to tease and harass her. Just as Sharon is about to harm Alice, Saya intervenes, preventing a potential attack on Alice's life. She asks Alice to leave and closes the door tightly to keep her out. A fight breaks out, but despite Saya's attempt to hide her actions, Alice witnesses Sharon and her friend being brutally dealt with. It is revealed through the fight that Sharon and her friend were actually vampires in disguise. As Alice sees the decapitated head of one of her bullies, she goes into shock and runs off. Before she leaves the school, she sees a couple of men in suits entering the place with their briefcases. They are probably the members of the council who have come to clean up the bodies. Shortly after, we see Alice arrive at the school, accompanied by her father and his troops. They quickly stop the car that is about to leave the school grounds. Just then, Michael and Luke also arrive at the scene. Michael shows his fake CIA badge, but the general is not convinced. Michael tells the general that his superior will call and confirm with him shortly, so they should remain professional till then. General McKee asks Frank to keep an eye on them, while he goes in to check the practice room that Alice mentioned. Once inside, they are unable to find any remains of the bodies. Alice swears that she witnessed how Saya slayed the girls, and how their blood turned strange, but her father has his doubts. He inquires about Saya and soon exits the building despite Alice's insistence. Once outside, the general gets a call and is forced to let the people go. After departing from the school, Michael gets a call from someone and tells Luke that the elder has summoned them. Back at their house, Alice throws another tantrum. She desperately asks her father to believe her and says that Powell, her kendo instructor, knows something. But then again, how could her father just believe in this supernatural stuff that she is spouting? He remains unconvinced by her account. He sternly asks her to let it go and let the elders do their job. He then goes off to call Frank and ask him to aggressively continue their investigation, despite everything. Feeling cornered, Alice decides to investigate independently. She sneaks out, taking her father's car. On the other side, Michael and Luke arrive at a Japanese restaurant to meet the elder. The elder is an old but sharp-looking man. He reprimands them a little for not being discreet. He says how, due to their mishap, he is now facing a hard time. The general is calling Langley and Washington to start an investigation on them. The elder is angry because the council is an anonymous organization, and it must remain like that. The two men apologize for their mistake and promise to make everything right. After that, he hands them a few files containing pictures of a recent incident of a plane crash near Okutama Mountains. It turns out that the incident is O'Negan's work. The old demon has taken their bait and has come over to them. On the other side, we see O'Negan, the demon herself. She arrives at a hotel to seek refuge. There, she takes out the poor attendant with a flick of her finger. Then she declares in a cold voice that the feeding season has begun. Meanwhile, we see Alice, who has followed her kendo instructor into a bar which he frequents. She follows him in and confronts the man. She asks him why he lied and allowed the other two girls to be alone with her. He knew they were going to hurt her, so why did he do it? Powell gets irritated and tells her to stop thinking that it is all about her. He tells her that what she sees is not always the truth. The more Powell speaks, the more menacing he gets. He gets up and starts to slowly come towards her, after saying that there has been a war between her kind and theirs. Alice gets petrified at the sudden change in atmosphere. The once lively-looking club starts to get more and more uncanny. As she looks around, she shockingly discovers that not only her instructor, but everyone else in the bar are vampires. Horrified, the girl runs for her life. Even outside the club, nobody helps her. After running for a while in a dark alley, a vampire pounces on her. In this dire situation, Saya once again steps in to rescue her. She throws off the two vampires attacking the girl and takes her hand to flee. They run a small distance before getting surrounded by a horde of menacing vampires. Saya engages in a fierce battle against this horde to ensure Alice's safety. She then hides Alice below a huge straw basket before resuming her bloody fight. Once she takes out everyone, Powell arrives at the scene. He watches all his perished comrades and in rage transforms into his original form, a shoddy demon. His human form is way better. This shoddy finds Alice, grabs the poor girl and flees with her. He takes her to a terrace and tries to attack her, but Saya intervenes in time, slashing his cheek. She runs after him, but he escapes with Alice. Saya grabs her sword and follows suit. They jump from roof to roof, smashing everything here and there, but nobody gives a damn. Shortly after, Saya catches up to the demon and frees Alice from his grasp. But before Saya can attack him, he jumps off the roof. Shoddy grows a pair of wings and flies off. Saya and Alice quickly get down towards Alice's car and go after the flying demon. The demon goes to Kento Air Base, and the two girls follow suit. After a desperate chase, Saya finally manages to strike the wounded demon down. As she approaches the demon, taking his last breaths, she has a flashback. She remembers Kato's dying moments and her self-realization of being a vampire. She remembers how she had cried out, telling Kato that she is a demon herself. Kato, however, even in his final moments, made sure to tell her otherwise. He told her that unlike these heartless beings, she has a soul, thus she is not a demon. Back to the present, she slices and drops her blood onto the demon, who is finally relieved of his misery. On the other side, we see the council member being stalked by Frank. He sneaks up to their car and breaks into the trunk to see what they are hiding. Back at the base, we see Saya tending to Alice's hand, which was slightly wounded. It is a wonder that she remained intact after how that demon thrashed her around. After patching her up, Saya tells her to forget everything and go back home. When Alice offers help, she refuses and tells her to keep quiet about everything if she wants herself and her father to be safe. The girl reluctantly agrees and tells Saya to be careful. Frank arrives back at General McKee's house with a suitcase. They open it up, but are clueless about its contents. Before they can call the tech guy, Luke arrives with another man in a suit. He asks the general to give the suitcase back, but he refuses. The man then tells him that he is willing to give Saya to them, the one who is really responsible for the slaughters. Hearing this, the general orders Frank to note down the address of the girl. As they get a little distracted, Luke launches an attack. He injects Frank with poison and shoots the general. In a tragic turn of events, Alice arrives just in time to witness her father's last breaths. He sees her come in and tells her to run. She hides in a corner, and when Luke looks for her, she attacks him from behind. The man passes out temporarily. In his final moments, her dying father manages to provide her with Saya's address. With no other options, Alice resolves to seek refuge and assistance from Saya. Luckily, she runs off before Luke wakes up. Back at the hotel, Saya is visited by Michael. He brings her news of Onigin and her blood supply. Turns out, Onigin is looking for Saya too. Michael asks her about her plans after dealing with Onigin, but Saya says that it would be the end for her too. It seems Michael has a soft spot for Saya, as he becomes a little sad hearing this. He soon leaves, and we see another man downstairs with a sniper. Shortly after, Saya takes out the blood to drink. As she is feeding, she hears a noise outside her door. Taking up her sword, she warily approaches the door. When she opens it, she finds a crying Alice standing outside. She quickly pulls the girl inside and closes the door. The girl cries, asking why the people that she works for took out her dad. Saya tells the girl that she is not working for them, but rather they provide her what she needs, and she takes out bloodsuckers. As they are talking, Saya notices the man with the sniper. Meanwhile, outside, we see Luke in a car getting a call. He hears the news of Alice coming to Saya's residence and aggressively orders the sniper guy to take her out. Thankfully, Saya, having never pledged allegiance to the council, chooses to protect Alice instead. Michael, who is also nearby, hears the commotion and rushes towards Saya. As the two girls exit the room, they come face to face with Luke, who is wielding a gun. He asks Saya to hand over the girl, but she refuses. Michael also arrives at the scene and stops Luke from shooting the girl. Luke half-heartedly stops. But when Michael goes towards the girls to make sure they are okay, Luke shoots the poor man from behind. Watching Michael's lifeless body, Saya goes off in rage. She flies towards Luke and cuts off his hand. Before she can take him out, she looks over at Alice and stops. Together, they escape the scene and head to the mountains after coveting a truck. As they are driving, they hear the news of Alice's father's demise through the radio. Alice cries at how the truth is effortlessly concealed. Her father was clearly shot, but the news reporter talks about how he passed away due to a heart attack. The liar further mentions Alice by saying that she is mentally unstable according to a psychiatrist and might. Thus, anyone who might identify her should report to the authorities. So much for freedom of speech. Amidst their journey, Saya passes out. Alice stops the truck and gets off, dragging Saya with her. She notices that the poor girl is in bad shape. Turns out she was shot by Luke back when she attacked him. Alice tries to awaken her, but to no avail. Then, all of a sudden, she gets an idea. Using Saya's sword, she cuts her and feeds her blood to her. After drinking it, Saya abruptly opens her eyes to find that Alice has saved her. When she asks her why, Alice replies that it was the right thing to do. Hearing this, Saya has a flashback from her childhood. She remembers how it was easy for her to tell right from wrong, back when she was a child. Kato raised her and taught her martial arts. She also had a friend with whom she fell in love too, but her happy days were soon over. One day, she saw herself taking her beloved's life in a dream. As she woke up from the dreadful dream, she found out that it was actually the reality. Kato then handed over her father's sword to her, which had the powers of all the demons he took out. He had sternly asked her to run away with it before the demons found her. Back to the present, we see Saya struggling to get up. She sees Alice crying in a corner and comes up to her. Alice asks about her family, and she tells her how she never knew her mother. Her father passed away at the hands of Onigin days after she was born. She tells Alice that Onigin is the oldest and most powerful demon out there, the one Saya is after. She mentions how after Onigin slayed her father, Kato took her in and taught her everything. In the end, he even passed away while protecting her. Poor Kato was slaughtered right before Saya's eyes by the demons. Exploding with fury after witnessing this, Saya had managed to take out all the demons. She had made sure to plunge the sword into their leader's eye, who had still managed to escape afterwards, but she was not able to save Kato. It was just too late for him. As Saya tells her story to Alice, it becomes clear how she also considers herself responsible for her father's demise. Alice, however, assures her that she is nothing like the demons because she has a soul. In the meantime, Onigin senses Saya's presence nearby and sends her underling to fetch her. The underling turns out to be the same demon who had attacked Kato back then. Alice and Saya board the truck again and are on their way when they encounter an attacking demon. The demon forces their vehicle off the road, causing them to plummet into a ravine. The truck gets stuck in the middle, with Alice inside. Saya manages to get out of the vehicle. She and the demon get into a fierce fight, thrashing each other around. Just as she manages to throw him off, Alice almost falls off the vehicle. Saya manages to catch her in time. As she saves her, the demon attacks them again. But this time, Saya makes sure to cut off one of his wings. Not being able to fly anymore, the demon resorts to throwing boulders, which Saya cuts into pieces. Getting irritated, the demon throws itself at her, and she uses a plank and drives it into the demon's neck. The impact sends him flying, and his body hits one end of the truck, making them all go plummeting down into the dark abyss. Upon regaining consciousness, Alice and Saya find themselves in ancient Japan, Saya's place of upbringing. Poor Alice is unable to process all that is happening. Saya, on the other hand, sees her house and goes inside. There, she comes face to face with her childhood crush. However, he is back in his pre-adolescence. Seeing him alive and well, Saya gets emotional and crouches down to hug the little boy. As she takes him outside, Alice calls out to her. She tells her that it is all an illusion. He is not real. When Saya looks back, she finds the boy looking like he is made of black ash. Startled, Saya is thrown off by a strong force. Onigin suddenly emerges from inside the house, unveiling her true identity as Saya's mother. Saya is enraged at this confession, but deep down in her heart, she has known it all along. With a loud shriek, she launches an attack on Onigin. The two engage in a fierce battle. Onigin tells Saya that the more she uses her powers, the more she becomes what she detests. It is her destiny to become just like her mother. Just as she is busy taunting her daughter, Alice takes this opportunity and attacks Onigin. Her efforts are in vain though. The place suddenly catches on fire and explodes. Saya is thrown off into a puddle of water. Onigin also emerges from the flames with Alice, throwing the poor girl into the water pool nearby. Saya rushes to the poor girl's rescue. She manages to pull her out, but the girl is passed out. Saya seethes in anger and her eyes turn blood red. She jumps towards Onigin, who keeps telling her to unleash her true form and follow in her mother's footsteps. Saya, however, makes sure to tell the woman that she may have given birth to her and may be able to take her life, but she would never mean anything to her. With sheer willpower, Saya ultimately triumphs over Onigin. Some time later, we see Alice awakening and finding herself at the crash site, receiving medical attention from paramedics. During the confrontation, she had sustained injuries and is now being treated. Apart from her, there is no one else present at the site. Afterward, during subsequent interviews regarding her father's demise, Alice recounts her experiences with the vampires and the council. Regrettably, her interviewer remains skeptical of her story. They say that the girl Saya that she keeps mentioning does not exist. The identity is fake. When questioned about Saya's whereabouts, Alice merely smiles and cryptically mentions that Saya is looking for a way back from the other side of the looking glass. She implies that Saya's quest to return from the other realm. However, the interviewer does not understand this context. The movie ends with a cliffhanger. Nobody knows what happened to Saya or where she might be.